Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, it's great to see so many of you here today. When we are all aware there is currently a very serious problem in the whole region with the flooding. Thank you for coming. This is the fourth time I have had the privilege to share my thoughts with you at the start of the Budapest Forum, a forum about the building sustainable democracies. Democracy is many things. Among other things, it is a collection of thoughts in our heads. Thoughts are powerful and they are everywhere. As a man thinks, so is he, says the book of Proverbs in the Bible. Indeed, thoughts play an enormous role in guiding us through life and in governing our everyday behavior. Throughout history, the key moments in society's evolutions, thoughts and ideas led revolutionary changes. So yes, thoughts have an enormous power. However, some ideas only hold power as long as people believe in them. Democracy is one of those ideas. There was a period in this part of the world around 1989-90, during the transition of socialist countries, when liberal democracy was completely and fully accepted. It was the framework in which all political debates took place. It wasn't one political idea competing against others. It was the rule book of the game. Institutions like constitutional courts ensured this rule book was followed based on the principle beyond daily politics. But liberal democracy was never universally understood and supported. It was more an elite consensus tied to the Western world order most people wanted to be part of. But those days are over anyway. Frustration with the new political and economic order gave rise to authoritarian populism. It now is a serious threat even in long-established democracies. So much so that we have started talking about the crisis of democracy. The crisis is, of course, intertwined with the climate and ecological crisis, which threatens social collapse. The link between the two is known all too well. Populism is driven by the idea of the constant struggle between us and them, and those who worry about the end of the world are labeled by the populists as them, for those who worry about end of the month. Populists don't just focus on the material needs. They offer values, stories, and ideas to speak the higher emotional needs. For instance, Putin was said, in the event of the nuclear war, Russians would go to heaven, while Westerners would simply die. If ever there was a post-material value, going to heaven is surely one of them. Liberal democracy now faces real competition, and the battleground is on our thoughts and ideas. Whether democracy survives, whether we avoid the climate catastrophe, depends on how people think. Thoughts are that powerful. Our job is to win hearts and minds, but maybe we aren't taking this task seriously enough. But how do we succeed? The only perspective I can share with you is that of a politician, a green mayor of a large city, where conditions for this job may be better than elsewhere. First of all, when in power, address inequalities in income, housing, and access to services. Liberal democracy is based on the political and moral equality, but material inequality undermines it. Secondly, avoid the polarization. Populism has very little content, and it's dependent on this narrative of us and them. Populists will predict you the Antichrist, and you will be provoked to respond in kind. But if you do so, it will only intensify the polarization. Forget the populist leader. Target your words in their audience instead, with respect and understanding. This is the strategy of radical love, which worked so well in campaigns of Mayor Imamoglu of Istanbul. Lastly, and maybe most importantly, I would like to draw attention to the distinction Pope Francis drew in his recent Trieste address between populism and the politics that responds to the real needs of the people. For me, it means I cannot lecture the citizens of my city about abstract ideas like sustainability, but I can make sure that families will be safe walking home. People are usually supportive to reducing traffic and lowering speed limits in their own street. And once they experience just how much better it feels walking their own street after such a change, they become more open to the same policies in their other streets. This is also an excellent access point to the idea of an equal value of all human beings. The more we make politics about our everyday lives, the more sense it makes. People need clear water. People need clean air. People need to know that their children won't develop asthma, and they appreciate the shade of a tree in a heat wave. Then your river will reach the highest point soon. They want their homes to be safe from the flood. I want to bore you with a long list of such experience, but I'm convinced that responding to such needs is the best way to win hearts and minds for progressive politics. For this struggle between democracy and populism is a struggle for winning hearts and minds. A future will ultimately be decided by what we think, because votes are powerful. Thank you.